So I guess I'm going to talk about all kinds of things, and right now I want to talk about a movie, and that movie is Frank Darabont's The Mist. And if you know me, I'm a tremendous Stephen King fan. Surprise, surprise. I'm a lonely writer who likes other lonely writers. Yeah, I know, it's a cliche. You know what? So is The Mist. But, that's the thing. I really like this movie. I don't think it's perfect or even really amazing in any particular regard. I just think it captures what it wants to be really, really well. So, like, Frank Darabont's this dude who directed and made a bunch of really, really, really critically acclaimed movies. Like the highest rated movie ever made, and one of the other highest rated movies ever made. And he made the first season of the most popular television show ever made. So he's like a guy that has a lot of clout. And right after he did The Green Mile and The Shawshank Redemption, he made a tiny, it's not really independent, but small budget horror film that he filmed with a TV crew. It's The Mist. It's like really weird. I mean, Frank Darabont did direct the first season of The Walking Dead, and he started part of his career with Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and then later did the remake of The Blob, which is actually also really good. But The Mist has always held a little special place in my heart as being one of those charming little movies about, the apocalypse. And nihilism.
There's no defense against the will of God. There's no court of appeals in hell.
But I'm gonna save that for later. But, my thoughts on the Stephen King short are pretty much exactly my thoughts on the film. I don't think it's really anything spectacular in any regard, but it's infinitely readable and enjoyable, well put together, has some creative imagery. I think that both issues with the film and the story are that people are kinda on most of these characters, because they're a little bit corny, or they're very stock Stephen King characters. You got the religious nut. You got the main sympathetic, pragmatic character guy.
Open that door and something gets in here.
Like what?
Well, like whatever made that noise I heard. Are you guys being willfully dense?
And so on and so forth. And yeah, both do have that issue, but I don't think it really gets in the way of The Mist trying to be anything particularly special, I guess. It's that King knew what he wanted to do, and he did it. And you know what? Frank Darabont did the exact same thing. Stylistically, this is a pretty big departure from what he was doing before. As in, there were these really well-shot, beautiful, thought-provoking films that were, almost epic in scale. And yeah, I know Stephen King did also write Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption, but it's still a different kind of thing. And The Mist is this low-budget, almost J.J. Abrams-style directed kind of thing. Just kind of strange, is all. But I like it. It's fun. So, what exactly did I want to say about it? Well, I don't know. It's interesting. See, if you're one of those people who plays all the video games, you've probably played a little series called Silent Hill. And Silent Hill is very influential on, well, pretty much everything now at this point, but it also took a lot of inspiration for different things. Like being based off of a couple different movies and even a couple of books, like, Jacob's Ladder, and based off of things like, oh yeah, Stephen King, and The Mist, the monsters. A lot of this movie probably just didn't resonate with people because it came out at a point where we had seen all of the things that were in The Mist elsewhere. And, I guess I get it. But there's just something so fascinating about watching a movie so small become so big. It's a movie that's sort of like, Night of the Living Dead, where they get everybody trapped in one place, and, you know, it's more about the people having conflict than the supernatural shit that's going on. And yeah, the people start arguing, and it's mostly their downfall. So, if I can poo-poo one thing about this movie more than anything else, it's probably the special effects and not the characters. This movie is not a movie where you should focus on the special effects, it's not about that. They're effective at doing their job, and a lot of the monsters are incredibly creatively designed and really interesting to look at, but you can tell the CG just really doesn't hold up. However, the action scenes in the film are very fast and very erratic and almost real because of the style of shooting of this movie. The lighting on the creatures also works pretty well to its advantage as well, so, you know, there's that too. Character-wise, again, it's pretty good. I mean, yes, you've seen all of these characters in different stories, probably even different Stephen King stories, but to suit the needs of the story, it does pretty well. It's all about different people thinking different ways and then basically just turning on one another. You got Marcia Gay Harden as the completely unlikable, worst person to ever exist in the history of ever person.
I tell you what, the day I need a friend like you, I'll just have myself a little squat and shit one out.
And of course, she's overly religious, and then basically kind of a cult happens, and this poor asshole gets shipped off to giant enemy crab, and giant enemy crab pulls the poor guy in half. Yeah, that's another thing I kind of like about this movie. Holy shit, it's really fucking gory. Like, God bless, this movie is just terrifying when it wants to be. There's not a lot of scare cues, it's a lot of really subtly built-up horror, and God damn if I don't appreciate that. Like, there's no sound cues when this little bug hits the window, it's just, oh God, it's scary. Ah! God! Oh my God. And again, due to the style of shooting, it has an almost documentary feel to it, so it feels even more raw and real, and I like that. Not to mention the characters that we end up following are likable characters. And yes, Stephen King does have a tendency of doing the, yeah, all the characters that are pragmatic skeptics like me are usually the characters that are going to be better off. And, you know, it's effective. It's suspenseful with the people because the people are all conflicted. It's suspenseful outside the people because of the monsters. And it's really just kind of an ingenious setup when you really think about it. It's simple, but it's effective, like most horror. But, you know, where my love really shines through is the last 30 minutes of this movie. Because it really goes in a direction that a movie like this, I didn't really foresee that happening. Throughout the movie, you see different kinds of monsters, and you're just kind of like, what the fuck is in that mist? There's so many different monsters that are so horrifying. What happened? What's going on? What are these? What's happening? So you keep seeing them, and then eventually the main characters break out of there, and then they like leave, and they see all these horrifying spider creatures, and there's like bigger creatures that they run away from, and then they all get in the car and drive away. And oh man, oh boy, this is pretty fucking creepy. And then the movie gets sad, like nihilistic as shit. And I love me some nihilism. But that's the thing, is that King sort of pulled one out of left field when he did this. They all leave, they all discover that most of the world, as far as they can tell, is completely fucked and overrun with giant Lovecraftian abominations. That's another reason I really like this movie. It's got a lot of Lovecraft in it, monster-wise at least. You can tell that there's some Cthulhu mythos type shit happening here. And that does happen in other Stephen King stories. And because up until this year with the release of The Void, we have not really had an honest-to-God Lovecraft movie since, like, In the Mouth of Madness, which, you know, that was a long time ago. And so, basically they all discover that, you know, the world is fucked. And, well, they've gone through the whole movie being like, well, we don't really have anything anymore. We're all screwed. So they get out a gun, and Thomas Jane has only enough bullets for everybody else, and ends up shooting his friend, his other friend, and his son. and he, like, has the most uncomfortably real scream I've ever heard in my life. Like, a scream that can only be uttered by a father who is looking at the corpse of their child. And then he gets out, and everything's fine. If he had waited like 10 minutes, everyone would be okay, because the military came in and basically just, fucked off the monsters to death. And wow, this music. Oh, okay. Yeah, so The Mist is a tiny movie, but, it's not a movie that's devoid of interesting elements and cool ideas and good execution. Is it a little cliched? Yeah, sure, a lot of Stephen King things are, but I maintain that the trademark of Stephen King is that when he's not being creative and he's being a bit more derivative, he still tends to execute his stories perfectly in how they're constructed. Like, I don't know. The Shining, for what it is a book that I really don't care for that much. It's a story about redemption, and when you make a book that's supposed to be scary, and then you make it about redemption's really not that scary, so I have a hard time connecting to that. But for what it was, King really did execute it very well. He had a lot of really interesting ideas. And those ideas don't really translate well to, say, I don't know, a mini-series. But the point is that King knows what he's doing in most cases. When he's not writing Dreamcatcher. Oh my god. Christ. Who thought this was okay? Lawrence Kasdan? What the fuck? Anyway, you all should watch The Mist. I watched it on Amazon Video a couple of months ago, and I'm quite fond of it. It's not a movie that I can call legitimately great, because it does have one or two issues here and there, but it's a great horror movie to just kind of put on and watch. One of those movies that you can pay attention to or just keep on in the background. It's a very well-made film. I mean, Frank Darabont made it, so of course it's good. But, yeah. So, watch The Mist, I guess. I read Stephen King books. Read Dark Tower. Dark Tower's a movie coming out. I really want to see it.